Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dave Neal here with the Rush Hour podcast, December 30th, 2024. I've got all of your entertainment and pop culture news in one place. On this Rush Hour episode, we've got former Bachelor Nick Viall discussing fame and being an A-lister after being on the show, plus bleak news in the housing market. Interest rates continue to drop, mortgage rates continue to rise. What people are saying and what hopes you might have for buying a home in 2025. Also, some great advice from Gary V for conquering social media in the upcoming year, plus a big breakup in the Bravo universe announced on a podcast. If you want clicks in the modern age, you got to announce your breakups on your podcast. That's Influencing 101. I'll explain who that was. And following the Moo Dang fame, the U.S. now has a baby pygmy hippo of its own in Virginia. I'll share that big story. Go USA. Plus an update in the Clayton Echard story as the Bachelor's accuser's lawyer says he is prepared to sue the guy at the Arizona bar. This following them investigating him for, I guess, lack of ethics in the world of law in Arizona. Wild stories coming today. The year's ending. The drama is not. I'll have all of that and more coming up next on The Rush. We'll have your Bachelor Nick Viall story coming up next, but first we have some news for the theater nerds out there. Wicked overtakes Mamma Mia to become #1 stage musical adaptation ever at global box office. I mean, monster numbers here. 634 million estimated as of Sunday, of which 424 million is from domestic and 210 from the international box office. So that's big stuff. Congratulations to Wicked out there. And let's go to Nick Viall. Here he is on a podcast discussing the 6 months following being The Bachelor, you become an A-lister.
The 6 months that you're the lead of that franchise, you have borderline A-list celebrity access.
And borderline is a very key word here. I guess after that, you have to work as a mechanic at a gas station. What is this shirt he's wearing? No, of course, Nick is extremely successful. We wouldn't be talking about him if he wasn't.
You know, you're getting on top talk shows. You know, you're one of the most famous people in America in that short period of time. You know, you're very noticeable. You go outside of the street and people are noticing you.
And to his credit, I remember after Katie Thurston's season of The Bachelorette, her and Blake met my wife and I in New York City for mimosas, and they were getting recognized. Actually, there was a funny instance where Blake Moynes got recognized and Katie didn't. I mean, look, if you watch the show, obviously they're the stars of the show. If you don't watch the show, you have no idea who they are. So it's kind of like you're famous within a very specific niche.
And it's an interesting thing, and it can be stressful and fun all at the same time. And then obviously that slowly goes away. And the challenge of coming off The Bachelor is like, how do you replicate that high? It's like most people when they start in kind of an entertainment business, there's a slow build, and they have this small job and they build and build. And with The Bachelor's overnight, you're like big time. And then if you want to stay in entertainment, it's kind of the whole goal is how do you get back up to that, So
I think what's interesting with Nick here, I think most people that were the lead on The Bachelor think this way as well, which is so funny to me as someone who's worked a decade plus as an actor, 15 years, and as a stand-up comedian, is they think that they're in entertainment because they starred on the Bachelor dating show. And it's like, sure, you do line reads, you work with the producers, but like, you're not really, sure, you are in entertainment in the fact that you're on a TV show, but that's like, I reject the premise that you're really in entertainment. You're just mining entertainment from your soul. That's what you're not really creating anything. I don't know. Do I sound bitter? I'm not trying to be. I just think it's kind of funny to be like, you realize that you're not really special, right?
So I spent a lot of time trying and failing and trying different things, and I was in acting classes and improv classes, and I still do some acting. And
Do you? Anyhow, I mean, look, it's interesting, right? Because I've actually, and by the way, when Kanye West when Kanye West had his jaw wired shut, he was enunciating better than Nick was there. But I understand the idea that you start out with this fame, like they give you this fame, and then you can only really go down from there. I understand that idea. Speaking of fame, from bachelors to baby hippos, we have a new pygmy hippo in our own great state of Virginia. Virginia's for lovers and baby pygmies.
Carry on, Wogams.
Thank you. I have a lot to say about Mudang and the dawn of a new diva this morning. Meet the baby pygmy hippo born at the Metro Richmond Zoo in Virginia just a couple of weeks ago. She weighs 15 pounds and the yet-to-be-named hippo made her debut just before Christmas. Hippo MG, you guys. America's very own Mudang. And just north of there, the Smithsonian National Zoo in D.C. also released a never-before-seen video of their newest residents, the giant pandas, who are set to make their public debut on January 24th.
Listen, if you have a zoo, you got to play the game right. You need good branding. So Mudang was famous in part because it's a baby pygmy hippo. It's cute as heck. But also Mudang's a kind of cool name. Oh, have you seen Mudang? So depending on what they name this hippo will depend on everything. As we know, the Cincinnati Zoo had Fiona the hippo, and then of course in Thailand they were like, well, what if we do that but a pygmy? So I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see if the U.S. version of the pygmy hippo is as popular. Maybe one day they can come together and become friends. I don't know. All right. Well, from a happy animal story to a rather sad animal story. Check this title out. Texas cheerleader charged with poisoning classmate's goat. Intentional torture. Didn't have that on my Friday night's episode guide. A Texas teenager has been charged with animal cruelty. This after cops say she poisoned another student's show goat. Aubrey Van Landingham was arrested late last month and charged with cruelty to livestock animals after police say they saw security footage of her giving toxic pesticide to a classmate's goat using a drench gun, a tool generally used to administer medicine to goats and other farm animals. Prosecutors say the goat, named Willie, R.I.P., died, spoiler, about a day after he was allegedly given the toxic pesticide, experiencing symptoms like convulsions and respiratory distress before ultimately passing away. They allege Van Landingham did intentionally and knowingly torture a livestock animal. I've got so many questions here. First of all, justice for Willie. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like, whether it's a livestock or a family pet, that's a goat. What are you doing? My guess is there's a romantic reason behind a vengeful livestock death. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with reasons a teen cheerleader would commit the killing of a livestock animal. How they prove intention will be interesting. I'm going to have to see with that. But police say it went down at Vista Ridge High School at their barn facility in Cedar Park, Texas, 20 miles north of Austin. An arrest affidavit first reported by CBS Austin says Aubrey has already confessed. Oh, she confessed. Okay, so there we go. Allegedly admitting this was her second attempt because she claimed the animal's owner's daughter was a cheater. Oh, okay. Listen, I'm just telling you right now, I have a good intuition when it comes to strange news in the livestock world, and I don't think you just kill a goat because it looked at you wrong. So the goat was killed because the animal's owner's daughter was a cheater. Before Willie was killed, police say Aubrey searched for information on her phone about lethal poisons for animals and also how to clear her search history. Van Landingham was released on a $5,000 bond. We've reached out to the lawyers. So look, we'll give updates as they come in this high-profile goat-killing case. But honestly, it's really sad. It's just a sad story. And, it's sad for several reasons. One, for the goat, Willie, but also because what the heck was this girl thinking? Now, she's not even 18. So is her brain fully developed to know the consequences of killing someone's goat? You might say yes, but at the same time, I hope that she's able to recover from and by the way, when, the main thing for like psychopaths out there, they always say like, did they kill cats? Did they do this? Did they do that? So I'd say at the very least, put this lady on a watch list and don't let her near your goats. All right, well, I've got a story coming up of a breakup in Bravo universe, and we'll have that for you next. All right, updates to the Bachelor Clayton accuser, whose lawyer is now planning on suing the Arizona State Bar. That's a mouthful. Well, speaking of mouthfuls, that's what got us into this situation, right, Laura? We'll have that story next. But first, Paige Dorbo goes Splitsville with Craig Conover. Conover? I don't know. I don't know these people. Do you follow them? They announced their breakup on a podcast. I guess she's from Bravo Summer House. I can't keep track of all these shows. There are so many shows on Bravo. I think if I ever had to live in a bunker, some sort of nuclear fallout, I think what I would do is just watch Bravo. It's absolute. I mean, I can barely get through Below Deck, but here it is. The clip of Paige Dorbo from Giggly Squad announcing her breakup from a 3-year-long relationship.
Craig and I have decided to no longer be together. And I know I said I would never cry on the internet, but it's okay if I cry on the pod. I feel like that's okay. It's weird. Obviously, it's weird. It's very weird. I wasn't expecting this. Obviously, when we first started dating, you don't think oh, what's going to happen? Will we get married? Will we not? You just kind of are in this relationship. When we did break up, obviously I didn't run to social media and I didn't run to the pod. We both gave each other a little time to deal with it on our own in private, with our family and friends. And
by the way, it must be exhausting breaking up as an influencer. You have to release statements. You got to coordinate about who's going to announce it and how are we going to, because on one end, it's terrible. It's heartbreak. But on the other, you're going to get a big bump in your podcast. I mean, it's a kind of a consolation prize, but you'll take it.
Now I feel like it is appropriate to be able to tell people. And so obviously I would come to the gigglers first, and I'm not throwing up a joint Instagram post, All
right, so coming to the gigglers first. And now, by the way, here at the Rush Hour podcast, I've been calling you guys Rushies. Is that a good term? Does anyone have a better option for what we call you? Also, as an aside, today's our first full day doing the podcast on YouTube as well. So if you've never seen what I look like and you only listen to me in your car and you go, what's this great hair Dave talks about? Well, now you can come see on YouTube. I suggest, if possible, both listen on the podcast apps and watch on YouTube. Do both if you can. But if you had to do one or the other, pick whichever one is going to keep you in the fan group. I really don't care. If you are on YouTube, like this video, leave a comment, and watch in its entirety. That's the best way to get us promoted long term. As far as Paige's decision to talk about the podcast, to talk about the breakup first on the podcast, look, this is great. Instagram doesn't pay your bills. You don't really make money on Instagram unless you're promoting a product. But on the podcast, you're driving traffic to it. So in a little bit, I'll discuss some tricks and techniques for kind of trying to make money and get into this world of content creation in 2025. I'll have that for you guys in a minute. But let's go back to Paige crying on the Giggly Squad. Yeah, you never want to cry to the gigglers.
That's not how I'm going to handle it. But I love him. I think he loves me. I think we will remain friends. No one did anything. It wasn't a bad thing. I think we both were just being...
Nobody killed any goats. There was none of that going on. No one was liking photos of other people's pygmy hippos. Nothing like that.
Really mature and saying what we want and what we didn't want. And I think that's extremely powerful to be able to voice how you're feeling in real time and what you want for your future.
There it is. And, hey, every relationship gets to that crossroad where you go, is this person here for the long term? Are we doing this? And after 3 years, they said no. And that's okay too. I don't think a 3-year-long relationship should be considered a failure. It's just, you grew together and now you're going to grow apart. Well, speaking of growing apart, it looks like it's the soft breakup between Bachelor Clayton Echard's accuser, Laura Owens, and her attorney, David Gingras, who we are affectionately referring to as Baby Jingy. He made a video that says Gingras lawsuit versus Arizona bar ? So as you guys know, I like to be in the forefront of the news here in the world of Bachelor and other entertainment stories. And I will take credit for being the first to file a bar complaint against David Gingras. Of course, that came, if you aren't familiar, after he threatened to make my family homeless while I had an 8.5-month pregnant wife. Now, my wife gave birth to our beautiful baby boy who's almost 8 months old now. It seems like a very long story in the making, but I was the first of, I don't know, at this point, 7, 8 different bar complaints against him, ranging from the podcaster who claims he defamed her to the judge in the trial who ruled against his client. It's absolute banana lands. I don't think I could get 8 bar complaints against me if I was a lawyer in my entire career. I think most lawyers never get a bar complaint against them. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone's got a client that's unhappy with the outcome. You're entitled to defend yourself after you get these complaints. But what's interesting is after the Arizona bar was extremely dismissive of my complaint, mainly because I wasn't his client, and they're really more worried about lawyers and their clients. As a journalist, they weren't really worried about me. Totally understandable. But they did ask him to clean up his act. Now, clearly he hasn't, or else these other complaints wouldn't have come in. I don't have the influence to force Judge Mata to file a complaint against him. But here is David Gingras explaining why he may sue the Arizona bar.
Don't freak out, but what is probably going to happen is I'm probably going to have to sue the bar guy. Now, before anyone freaks out and says, oh my God, why is Gingras suing the bar? You can't sue the bar. You're right. I can't sue the bar. The State Bar of Arizona is a government agency. They have what's called 11th Amendment immunity. People have tried to sue them before, lawyers who are getting in trouble sue the bar, and they're like, I'm going to fight back. I'm going to sue them. And they lose 100% of the time because you cannot sue the government in federal court without their consent. But there's an exception to this. It's based on a U.S. Supreme Court case called Ex parte Young, and there's a huge body of law about this. And again, I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect to Megan Fox or people that are going to be commenting or responding to this. This is way over your heads. It is not something that you are going to understand.
So here he is, dressed as a Temu Home Depot employee. And by the way, you might be wondering, why is he dressed as a Home Depot employee? Probably because he's going to need to buy some equipment to rebuild his client's life after he pretty much helped destroy it by adding fuel to the already raging fire. So I'm not going to get into the details. I'm not a lawyer of why he feels like he can sue the Arizona bar. But it's, it reminds me of having a baby and learning how to be a good parent. I don't know anything about being a good parent. I'm new to the game. But what I do know is if your baby throws a temper tantrum, try not to, partake in that temper tantrum. It feels as though baby Jingy over here is throwing some sort of temper tantrum because of the, results of his own actions. He doesn't, like the fact that they're trying to hold him accountable for his words. He also claims he's allowed to say some things online that he's been saying because he's only representing Laura Owens in the appeal of her court case. People have said, well, then why did you send a strongly worded letter to PS Creative Studios, the podcast studio, if you're only representing her in the appeals court? So, being contradicted seems to be a kink that he likes. And boy, is he really getting to work through all of those contradictions. And it'll be interesting. We'll give you guys any updates as they come. All right, let's move on to another topic here. The topic of feeling broke in the upcoming year. That's right. There's never been a greater separation of wealth since before the Gilded Age. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and people can't afford to buy a home. Here's a TikToker complaining, and we'll see if we can find any solutions.
How are we affording houses in the next year? More than anything, I want to buy a house, but seeing all these news reports coming out about interest rates being high as ever, housing prices high as ever, wages still the same, how are people doing it?
No, and it's a good question. People have showed, the facts that like your grandparents who might have made $85,000 in the 80s would now be $250,000 in today's world. Plenty of people used to have this coveted 6-figure income. If you can get to 6 figures, you can buy a home. That day is long sailed as rates continue to rise.
Mortgage rates are ending 2024 on a literal high note. The average rate on a 30-year mortgage is now 6.85%, its highest level since July.
By the way, way, 6.85%. My mortgage, I bought a home in January, is 7.15%. A $5,200 monthly mortgage, $4,700 of that is interest. That's $4,700 being lit on fire every month just to try to get into a home so that you can, have that American dream. I mean, it's crazy out there. I know you might be commenting with your jaw dropped. I bought a home at 3% interest in 2019. It's like, I understand. If you bought a home before 2021, you kind of had a chance to get in. In today's world, it's absolutely wild out there.
Most economists are also forecasting that rate will stay above 6% through 2025. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze joins me for more on all.
All right, so they actually get into the specifics of why the rates haven't fallen, and part of it is because of the fear of certain tariffs and the fear of the economy not kind of falling to the lower levels of inflation that they wanted. They wanted it to be in the 2% range. It's in the 3% range. And there's a whole lot to it. I'm sure people in the comment section will say, Dave, you're absolutely wrong. But let's do this. Let's go to Morning Joe and their economic analyst, Steve Ratner, discussing why this is kind of hurting people so much in the wallet.
If you want to look for reasons why people are unhappy and why the mood of the country is so dyspeptic, let's look at what has been happening to kind of what I'll call the fruits of our economic success. We've had a great economy for a good while with some ups and downs, but generally quite strong. But the rewards of that have not been delivered equally. So again, if we go back all the way to 1994, we're tracking here stock prices, and you can see what's happened to those. We're tracking corporate profits, and you can see what's happened to those. And we're tracking how much of personal income has gone up, and you can see the difference here.
So it's just clear that the gap between how much people are actually bringing home. So companies are doing well. The GDP is doing well. The CEOs are doing well. It's the average person that can't afford the rising prices of homes, the rising prices of simple things like groceries. And is that inflation or is it corporate greed? As they're showing more often, it's corporate greed. It's companies sort of like sucking that wealth upwards to the richest people. And for some reason, there's a lot of people in this country that want to celebrate billionaires. There's, the billionaires have absorbed so much more money than they can ever spend. And we're supposed to believe they're going to trickle it down to us peasants out here. It just doesn't work that way. One of the only ways that I've encouraged people to try to solve this world, we had this TikToker say, oh, how do I buy a home in the current world? And it's like, I'm telling you right now, I was broke as hell until I started making content online, until I started putting myself out there as a small business owner and kind of trying to sling it with the social media world. And Gary V, who of course has made a ton of money on the internet, explains that how outrageous it is for entrepreneurs, creatives, and creators to get online and promote your brand for free using social media. My ad spend dollars for the podcast and for the YouTube channel are essentially zero. I don't spend anything on flyers or getting product placement or things like that. I use the world that we have, social media, to try to tap my way onto your TV screens or into your pocket on the podcast app. It took a while for that to come. It took a lot of work, but in hindsight, that work has begun to pay off over the last 4 years as it's become my full-time job. I don't say any of that to brag. I'm just telling you, if you are stuck in a rut, maybe you're a novelist. Well, try to give social media something that's going to get them to buy your book. If it's all about giving. What can you give social media? What can you give others? Actually, this weekend, I'm going to be interviewing an ADHD life coach who's going to give us some great advice on conquering ADHD in the new year. So those types of the people that can give advice or entertain, those are the people that can crush it online and honestly have their careers change. Let's listen to what Gary Vee had to say.
The single greatest opportunity in the world for people to change the outcome of how they live or how their business is doing is called organic social media. Social media is free. Our grandparents did not have this. We are the lucky generation. The problem is most of you are not fully taking advantage of it. There are people literally in here who've never posted on social and are gonna post on TikTok, and the sixth video is gonna get more views than I get, and I've been doing it every day for almost 20 years. There is a level of merit to the individual piece of content that we have never seen. That level of merit is the great opportunity of your life.
You know, what helped my my YouTube channel take off is learning Photoshop and learning the art of making a good thumbnail. I was studying Mr. Beast, and I was studying how these content creators were all going viral. And of course, you have to have a good product. But I'm just here to tell you, if you're looking to get into content creation in the new year, success might not come right away. But as we've talked about that brick wall, it's not meant to keep you out. It's meant to show you how bad you want something. And the best way to find success, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram, start making content, even if it's for nobody. Find out how to use the hardware. Have a growth mindset. And the more you find out how to use the hardware, the actual phone, the more you realize everything you need for success, you already have in your hand. You have a point of view. You've got things that you're probably very passionate about. Start talking about that, and you'd be surprised how the world might sort of conspire in your favor. All right, that's it for me. I will be back tomorrow for a couple episodes on New Year's Eve. That's right. I'll have full content on New Year's Eve. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, or make sure you're subscribed on podcast apps. And also a very special birthday wish to the Queen, my mother. It's her birthday today. I won't say her age. She'd kill me for that, but very happy birthday to my mom out there. That's it for me. I'm Dave Neal, and this was The Rush.